Hey there guys, this is Obsidian Chill. Got another video for today. This is coming from the test server, a part of episode 46, Justice League Dark Cursed. This is the 4-player Elite Alert, the Cursed House of Mystery. Now, recurring question throughout these videos so far is we do not have an official release date of the episode. That's to TBD, so I will cover that and mention it when we do have that knowledge in a future video. The other thing is we're running a bounce setup of... Actually, I should mention, there's two kind of prevailing thoughts throughout this commentary for this alert. One is that the map is really well done. It's a nice design. Like I said before, this episode, they've taken small elements of recycled content, but then blended it in a way that it really doesn't draw your attention to it, and you don't feel like you're playing recycled content. So throughout this map, and even like all three well, not so much the first boss fight, as you'll see, it's basically a kitchen, but all the other encounters in the hallways, it's really well done. The second kind of prevailing thought is that this right now is a balance group setup where just a DPS control healer tank, but you do not need that, unfortunately, for this alert at all. Presently on test server, you just need a tank and 3 DPS. The issue is that throughout this, the instances and the encounters in this alert, it's really stationary and there isn't really any danger to the group, which I'll kind of explain as it comes up in the commentary, but that's the issue right now. And it's kind of been ongoing for a while with alerts. So DC, with the alerts, we have to remember as well, we need the difficulty elite because there's going to be Elite Plus version as well. So there's always the Elite Plus version of the raid, but we always have that Elite Plus version of the alert as well. Or most of the time we do it. With Metatherapy Clinic, there wasn't really an option to make that Elite Plus because it's just the Elite version was so easy. It's really been toned down. So the alerts, I mean, the alert we had in Kondak was certainly nice, but really the only true difficulty, even in Elite Plus, came from the last boss. Like going for like reverse monstrosity. It was a small room, and you're dealing with mechanics and AoE damage mechanics. But other than that, I mean, you just had a whole ton of ads you had to defeat, which is not really my favorite instance, where they're just kind of throwing dog piles of ads at you eventually to overwhelm you. And outside that, first boss really wasn't challenging at all. It was a stationary fight. So really the alerts, kind of the engaging, mechanically challenging alerts, we've been missing for quite some time. And not saying that this can't become that. I mean, this is why this is test server, so that we have opportunity to provide feedback. So in this fight with Etrigan, it's a lot different from his Darkness Rising Etrigan that we used to fight. So, I mean, he still spawns a couple of mirages. They kind of just die from splash damage. They're super weak. I mean, I'm the only DPS here. Mr. Fix is kind of battle trolling with the new artifact. But other than that, really there's no other damage. So if you had 3 DPS in the group, they'd be melting anyway. Then you're going to see kind of throughout the fight where it says avoid your teammates. Or like, explosion enemy, avoid your teammates. This room is huge. And there's only 4 people. And the tank's always going to be beside Etrigan. So there's a massive amount of area to move where there's absolutely no reason for you to be beside your teammate unless you're going to a supply drop, or if it's a healer and you drop like an EUG circle. Other than that, there's absolutely no reason. See that here, it's right here. It's the same mechanic as like Source Wall, and a few others like Terrarium Elite Plus, stuff like that. But really, there's absolutely no reason for you to be near a teammate at all. And then the other aspect, when Etrigan does his flamethrower, it doesn't track the player. It basically, you'll see that kind of red ore on the ground, and it just kind of keeps the direction. So all you have to do is simply just sidestep it. So it's like, okay, the boss is going to do a massive flamethrower. I'm just going to step a foot to his left, and then it's not going to hit me. So I mean, that's the issue. At least when it was like the mirage, the flamethrowers that the Etrigan did in Darkness Rising, at least player tracked you, so you couldn't go away. You're just going to track you. Same thing with like heat waves from the duo. I can't remember the name of the duo, but when Heatwave did his flamethrower, it player tracked you. So no matter where you went, you just had kind of eat it or kind of take it at range or dodge it or whatever, because you're going to take that damage. Right now, I mean, the tank can just sit there. I mean, the healer's really got nothing to do. There's no damage that I'm going to take or the troller's going to take. It's just kind of sit there in a stationary fight. So that's definitely a concern. I feel like this is going to turn more into... like Metatherapy Clinic or like MTCE fights, where it's basically you just kind of sit there, DPS the boss until he's dead and move on. So that's where we're definitely going to have some feedback need to be applied here to bring it to somewhat of a level, because right now, I mean, all you could do is just make it increase the boss damage and increase the health pools. which is not something we want to see for elite. I mean, that's basically a cop out when you're trying to increase difficulty in this game. Is basically just input a rally cog timer or reduce the limit in terms of rallies. But I mean, there's nothing that's going to remotely kill you anyway here. I mean, unless that flamethrower is like a one shot, and then basically the tank would die, and then you couldn't get the res because he's standing in there. But I mean, you'd have to be brain dead as a tank to take damage from that if it's not going to track you as a player. So that's something that is an issue, kind of ongoing, that we definitely need to correct within DC itself. Not just limited to this House of Mystery alert, but in general, we need the elite difficulty increased in alerts, because I'm not talking about to insane standards where you have to run like two healers or something, 1 DPS, 2 healers, and a tank or something just to beat the alert. We've had plenty examples of difficult elite fights and alerts that have been very, very well done. Think of the One Who Laughs. Even the Murder Machine fight, which was technically not a boss, that was still a good elite fight. You certainly had to follow the mechanics to do it properly. There's plenty of opportunities for you to die, but it wasn't overly difficult. And then we get to second boss there where we fight the Batman Who Laughs. That was probably my most enjoyable alert fight in this entire game's history. When that came out on test server, it was actually because it was buffed on test server. They nerfed it since then. But when that came out on test server, you legitimately had to be a good group to complete that. The One Who Laughs elite alert on test server, I would say maybe like 5-10% of the game's population could have completed that, because it was so much on the tank, it was so much on the group that you just had to be doing very well. And I know part of that was test server just with like lower gear and stats and stuff like that, but it was still an amazing fight. So just before we get into the boss fight here with Deadman, there was a puzzle aspect to the entrance to this alert. This boss fight in the alert. Etrigan's kind of going to go one of his riddles, and there's going to be a corresponding sword on the wall. So for example, he might say like some kind of riddle, I think it ends in like pitch black or something like that, or pick the sword that is dark as pitch or something like that. And then there's a sword that's all black, and you just turn the cog on the wall, and that opens up the door. If you failed, then it just spawns ads. So I believe there's 4. There's one that's like pick the sword made of coin. The pitch black one. I think there's another one where it's like a fiery red or something like that, or fire. But that's what it is. It just, you pick the sword that corresponds to his riddle and it opens up the door, or you fail it and it spawns ads. So this Deadman fight, I don't believe we fought Deadman before. I'm pretty sure this is a first aspect of fighting him. So the Deadman fight, he does have some kind of unique attacks. You're going to see like this like kind of trapeze attack. There's also a phase here where we get transformed, but as you see, I lose my abilities, nothing happens. I just roll like halfway across the map to the cog and turn it. And I mean, that's it. Other than that, once again, it becomes a very stationary fight. You're going to come to an instance where some furniture is going to come out and be kind of thrown at you. There's interesting mechanic, it's going to damage you. There's some feats for avoiding it. But as you can see here, the room is quite large. There's plenty of opportunity to avoid it or to dodge roll it. Other than that, that's kind of it. It kind of repeats the instances. So, I mean, the same fight where this fight has a lot of promise. There's different things they can do. Because if you remember from the Atlantis school alert, science school alert, that we had that kind of EOG portion where there was a role-specific cog. So if you're a DPS, you had to pick up this one. If you're like a healer, you had to pick it up. So it was basically the colors corresponded to what your role was to be able to complete it. And that's something they could definitely do with that kind of transform will-o-wisp mechanic, because at the moment, all it does is detransform you, and you basically roll and turn a cog. You're not taking any damage. It's not like, I mean, eventually if the tank is slow enough, then it's going to drop a taunt, and then basically Deadman can start attacking you. I mean, that's a possibility. But other than that, there's no real risk to the group. I mean, you could technically have a player sitting in that will-o-wisp mechanic the entire time. I think it like auto detransforms you after a certain period of time, maybe like 60 seconds or so. But other than that, there's no, I mean, you could just walk away AFK and it's not going to kill you. It doesn't drain your power or supercharge. It's nothing like roll mechanic where, since I got a green one, I have to interact with something with green to, stop. So like say for example, because this definitely has to change. I mean, the difficulty of these fights have to be increased, because right now, as I said, it's completely stationary. You get transformed, it kind of screws up your loadout because it's going to desummon robot sidekick and anything else you have. But really what they could do with this is that, say you get a green one. So if you have a green will-o-wisp, that means the entire group is losing health until you turn your cog. If it's a red one, then the entire group is taking like a damage over time until you turn your cog. If it's a yellow one, the entire group is losing supercharge until you turn your cog. Or if it's a blue one, then your entire group is losing power until you turn a cog. So something very similar, simple as that, really straightforward, completely understandable by even pugs. They're going to just basically just matching colors. Then at least it presents some kind of difficulty to the group. You can't just mess around and kind of slack off. You have to make sure you get that in time, or you're taking kind of damage throughout. And then I can't remember. I know for the furniture phase, Deadman leaves. So really, you're just kind of standing around waiting for the furniture. You could certainly keep Deadman out. I know the kind of the issue is that you don't really experience it here. I've done it in other groups before, but since I'm the only DPS, I'm not enough DPS to push a phase. So you can get to the point where the furniture phase here isn't health based. You can actually skip his furniture phase altogether just by pushing damage. So if you're a tank and 3 DPS doing this alert, by the time Deadman is doing his furniture phase, he's going to be at 5% health, and you might just get one phase. So that's also an issue if you leave him out during that phase. But really, in a room like this, a room this large, there definitely needs to be some more mechanics that kind of present that danger aspect to the group. And like I said, there's plenty of opportunities they can do. There's plenty of feedback we can provide, especially with a room that large to kind of play around with. But as I mentioned before, kind of the prevailing thought is that the room looks very nice. It's definitely a very interesting fight. The map is really done well. So this upcoming stretch of hallways, we're fighting the seeds of basically Swamp Thing NPCs. This is really the only section of the alert that I'm not overly fond of. I think it goes back to where I said we're kind of artificially extending the duration of the alert by just having kind of waves of ads at us. Not that there's too much ads in these hallways. We're coming up to a room where it's going to basically say survive an ambush. And really, we're just killing 3 sets of ads that spawn in basically the different corners. Now, it certainly could be used to kind of show off the nice kind of artwork in the room and the nice kind of look. But really, that's the only purpose it serves is that, I really like the room, the whole kind of sigils and everything on the ground, the pentagram, stuff like that. So, it looks really nice. It kind of gives that kind of gothic, demon summoning kind of vibe. Even though Swamp Thing wouldn't be related to kind of a demon. That's why I believe this kind of room was pulled from one of the Trigon solos where we fight, I forget what those were, Jack. There's the 3 Trigon brothers. I think that's where it was pulled from. So really, I don't think this makes any sense in terms of how it relates to the Swamp Thing ads. That's why we don't need to spend as much time in here. It could have just been simply clearing 3 sets of ads and the door's open. Because right now the door is shut, so we can't complete until we survive this ambush. And all the ambush is just a few sets of ads. So definitely, if they're looking to kind of save on duration, they could definitely skip this phase, because then the door opens, we fight some more ads here, and then we'll get to the final room with Swamp Thing. So that's my one concern. As you saw, even with 1 DPS, it was passed within maybe less than 60 seconds, so it's not an issue at all. It just feels like they're why are we kind of surviving an ambush of trees? So we're gonna get to the final boss cutscene here with Swamp Thing. So this is going to be our encounter with Swamp Thing. Now, I'm at a little of a loss. I know we fight him in the spring seasonal, but that's not a true indication of what his normal mechanics would be. I know way back, the villains had a specific instance with him. I believe the Seeds of Rot, where they fought him out in Central Park in Gotham City. So I'm not as too familiar with what those mechanics would be in that encounter. Right here, he doesn't really do much to the group. You can see it's a really stationary fight, except for some kind of poison gas that'll spawn. You'll see these green aura pools. Other than that, as you DPS, see right here, these are the aura pools, which is fine. They're simple dodge, but it's still, they could certainly increase the dot on those. The dot on those is 80. They're hitting me for 84k. And if we go back to what I said before, I was talking about earlier with the One Who Laughs alert. Those damage pools on the Batman Who Laughs fight, those are 120k, 200k ticks sometimes. You could not mess around with that spore field without basically cleansing it. You had to have a healer basically struggle to heal up the group after that if you had a dot tick on you. So it's not the same case here. But as the fight progresses, the main mechanics is that as you DPS them to a certain point, I don't believe, I think it's triggered by health, but I actually, while we're watching, we made a scar. I can't remember if it's health based or not. It's certainly not ever 25%, but he's basically going to go to a seed in the center and start to regen. And then basically we're going to have to DPS the ads and defeat them before, the longer he's in the seed, the more he's going to regen. So you just basically kill the ads as fast as you can. The other aspect of it here is he's going to have a sigil phase. Right here, Swamp Thing is regenerating. I forget what his health was at. So it could be every 25%. So I believe he does do it 4 times. But other than that, yeah, as you saw, it just spawns NPCs. There's a piranha that spawns too. I'm not exactly sure what it does. It does eventually grow to be larger. I think it's associated just with the feet. So it's just like one ad that can come out during the encounter. But other than that, these are all heavy single target fights, as you saw so far. But other than that, there's a time where you kind of get transformed into a tree. You don't lose your abilities though, but you basically be stuck in position, and then you'll have to have a player release you by sigil. But other than that kind of comes out throughout the fight as well. But other than that, it's basically just having Swamp Thing regen health, defeat him, bring him down to his phase, and then he basically regens again. So really, like I said, it's a very stationary fight beside these gas pools they have to avoid. In terms of adding mechanics, there's not too much to work with here in terms of just having Cursed Swamp Thing. Like I said, without knowing, here's the transformation. So I don't always lose my abilities, but I'm kind of stuck in position. I can still DPS though. So really, there's no drawback to the transformation unless there was a damage pool under me. So that's the thing. So if you're going to get transformed, and your teammates are not going to release you from the sigil, or basically they're not paying attention, there's no drawback because I can still keep DPSing. I mean, yeah, if there was a damage pool under me, I mean, the same thing, I've technically got a healer, you could just sit and heal me through it. I'm imagining that eventually you would break out from the sigil in terms of being stuck in there permanently. It might just take a longer duration. But once again, there's no kind of drawbacks to this fight. I mean, yeah, the ad spawn. I mean, the only danger really in this fight to the group is that when Cursed Swamp Thing comes out from his seed, regeneration seed, he doesn't have a Tauntaun right away, so if you DPS him too quickly, he's going to lunge out at you. So, I mean, in his larger form, because as he's going to kind of grow as he goes through different phases of the regeneration seed, there's going to be that opportunity. You see right here is kind of his final stage. If I would have DPS'd him early and he would have lunged me, there's a possibility I could die. But I mean, that's not so much a mechanic, that's just an aggro drop because he's in the seed longer. So as long as you wait for the tank to pick it up, it's not going to be any kind of issue at all. So I definitely feel like there needs to be more emphasis on the room mechanics. Maybe have the pools will kind of slowly spread and then cover the entire room, similar to like a lava flow where you basically have to keep moving the fight. Because really you just kind of sidestep. Same thing with like Etrigan's flamethrower, flame breath. You just sidestep to the left, sidestep to the right, and avoid the damage. These gas pools summon, you just sidestep to the left. So really, it's an incredibly visually appealing alert. Probably one of the best visually appealing alerts I've seen, but there needs to be a lot more emphasis on the difficulty, especially for Elite, which we'll see, and that's why it's on test server for feedback. So take care, guys.